Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. Wait, Jeff, you said you were ending The Daily Prompt. What's going on? And by the way, we haven't heard from you in a couple months. What's going on? I just wanted to make a quick little update because I've been working every single day since I last saw you. But one of the difficulties of this sort of situation is that 2 months goes by and it looks like nothing's happening, and all of a sudden everyone thinks that this is all sort of collapsed in on itself. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. I want to call this episode The Hole I Dug. So this is the hole that I dug for myself. One of the great challenges that I have here with Fast Screenplay, with this YouTube channel, with the idea of building this independent film studio, is that I have dug a rather deep hole for myself. About 20 years ago, I started looking for screenplays to produce, and I was living in Sydney, Australia. I put out a call for screenplays. We got about 300 scripts in. I knew how hard it was to write a script, so I decided I was going to actually respect the writers and sit and read all 300 scripts from cover to cover. And I quickly discovered that just people, at least in Australia, at least at the time, just did not have a true sense of screenwriting. They didn't quite understand what was needed and necessary. And so I had this vision for building an indie film studio. Even back then, the idea then was only 3 to 6 films a year. The idea now is releasing 50 films a year, one a week, basically. That's the target, the initial sort of medium-term target. But none of the projects were viable and nowhere near viable. Like, there was no way that I would be able to work with any of the writers to develop the skills. There were probably 2 or 3 projects, I think, at the time that were things that I might be interested in, but they just needed too much work, and I didn't have the resources to get that work done. And so I started teaching screenwriting, and I started offering workshops. What does a producer need? Understanding what they're looking for, what the person on the other side of the table is looking for. I started teaching screenwriting. And I tried to do this 8-week workshop from idea to first draft of your screenplay in 8 weeks. And just along the way, I realized that the writers that were in this class just didn't even have the basics. And so I created a weekend workshop where I said everything you need to know before you start writing your feature film screenplay. And it was called the Weekend Screenwriting Workshop. And I ran it for about 3 years, and I went all around Australia, all around New Zealand, into Singapore, Malaysia. I did it in Canada. And what I found was that everyone loved this workshop. It was a 2-day thing, fully intensive, like a whole weekend. I went into absolutely everything. But at the end of it, people just didn't do anything with it. Everybody said, "Oh, we love this." I got the heaping. I had 800 people feedback forms of just glowing praise, and it was like, that's great, but I'm not doing this for that. I want you to actually go off and write screenplays. And nobody did. Nobody followed through. And I would follow through with people, sometimes 6 months. I eventually had this little, in the workshop, I would have them fill out a postcard where they would put their goal on the postcard, and I would mail them out to them on the date that they had put on it. So sort of like, by 6 months from now, I will have my first script done. And so on 6 months, I would send that postcard out to them. I never heard back from anybody. But I just kept, what am I going to do? I couldn't find stuff. So I just kept teaching, and it started morphing into the FAST thing: focus, apply, strengthen, tweak. I realized it was a process. I tried to guide writers through the process, and just people would not follow through. And so I quit doing it for a couple of years, sort of 2005-ish. I quit for 5 years. I went off and I created a film festival in New Zealand, and I made an educational DVD that won awards, and I needed to just clear my head of the whole thing. And then at a certain point, it was just like, I'm still not happening. People just aren't developing stuff. They aren't following through. We had open submissions that whole time. And So I decided I needed to teach this stuff again at a certain point, kind of like I'm doing now with this daily prompt thing. I stopped doing it for a while. I'm like, well, nothing's changing. Let's maybe try again. And so that's when I built Fast Screenplay. And I said, rather than travel around all the time, just takes up so much time. There's so much expense in hotels and flights and venue rental and all this stuff. Why don't I just create something online where I could keep teaching this stuff? I'll just create this thing once and like guide people through the whole process. And then, we'll be able to save everyone money by giving people just this ongoing, continuously expanding resource to guide them through and actually develop stuff that we could actually make. And just, once it's done, it's out there, go there, learn how to do it, develop these skills. And then, in theory, hopefully we're going to end up with projects. And the problem is every step that I've taken, I've dug this hole a little bit deeper. And it's like, it gets to a point where it's like, there's no way out of the hole, really. It's like, so when I built Fast Screenplay, it was like, I would offer people lifetime access. You pay once up front and then you're done and you never have to pay for it again. And you get free upgrades and all that, thinking they're going to generate projects. We're going to create films. The success of those films is going to get more people interested in doing the whole thing. And it would become self-fueling, self-sustaining, and people quit. People just keep quitting. People quit. They have quit since the day I began. They have quit all along the way. They quit through the system that I built. It's like I created this. I conceived of this writer's room idea. Let's make your films. When you finish, I'm telling you, you have these skills. If you just do it and you get close to these skills, I'll help you over that last hump, and we'll actually go out and we'll make the films. And it doesn't sustain the challenge of it. It doesn't. I always keep trying to find ways to create an incentive to help writers overcome what is inherently a difficult thing to do. It's very easy to dream this stuff. It's very easy to imagine success. It's very easy to think about 100 pages of this loosely formatted thing called a screenplay and go, oh, well, I can fill up 100 pages and think that that's what this is. And it's not. It's not about that at all. If it was, I would have been making these films with the first 300 people to send their stuff in. But it's not ready. It's not something that we could actually use. It's not something that I could market. It's not something that has a clear audience. It's not something that has an effective story. It's not something that has good dialogue. It's not something that we can whose budget matches what its potential audience would. There's just so many things that are like, So my hole, the hole that I dug for myself is to keep trying, to keep doing this, to keep, and in some ways get further and further down the road with all this. And the hole that I really dug, I think, was Fast Screenplay, because while I 100% believe in it, I remain committed to it. It will be a part of my life forever. The challenge is, if people don't join it, I need to keep putting energy into it. Right now, what I'm trying to do is put together a webinar, my 7 steps to writing and selling your screenplay webinar, which I ran a couple of years ago. I figured out a new way to approach it. I want to make it the best thing you've ever seen. I want it to be just packed with value, and not just me talking, but like real usable takeaway value. And it just takes time. And so just because I've had so much work to do with the Fast Screenplay stuff, I haven't been able to finish that. And without finishing that, I can't sort of close that chapter and focus in on the production stuff. So it just keeps pushing things a little bit back. And it's so incredibly frustrating. It hasn't changed anything. Nothing has changed from anything that I've said in this series so far. Everything, you need to always stop and evaluate and look at where you're at and think about the what course corrections need to happen. And the course corrections that need to happen are I just need to not I need to not wait for people to to develop the skills. I need to do it myself. Unfortunately, I myself have been focused on trying to help writers develop these skills for so long that my skills are atrophied as well. If I go out and write a project and go out and make that project, I can't, I mean, I assume that it'd be okay, but I like, know how to make it not terrible, but I can't assume that it's going to be like great or something that people would go, hey, that's amazing. Let's join that guy's screenwriting thing. Like, I want the writers who've been doing this. And so the hole that I've dug for myself is I've really made it kind of like the very first thing that I end up making is going to have to really going to have to be pretty damn good, because everybody's, had this guy send me all his feedback recently, and he was like, well, I'm going to check and see your first couple of films and see how good they are. And it's like, well, okay, but we're building something. So part of the reason why I have not been posting much on this YouTube channel recently is simply I'm just buried under this workload, which I had hoped that as I'm buried under this workload, there would be writers going along alongside all that, developing all the other stuff so that we could roll right into it. It's just, I always come back to something that this question, this rhetorical question that I would ask writers way back in my very first workshop. And that is, do you want to write a screenplay, or do you want to have written a screenplay? And I would argue that almost no one wants to write a screenplay. Almost everyone just wants the idea in their head to just magically be a screenplay. And it takes time to do that. It takes potentially years. If you started watching this Daily Prompt series on day one, and you really, it is now probably 8 months after we started episode 1. There's a big 3-4 month break in there between now and the previous couple of episodes. How far along are you? Are you where you wanted to be? Because if you had simply gone through the system, you would basically be through the meat of it already. You would have your draft. You would have tested your draft. You'd be pretty far along. We have very few people who are doing that actively, and I'm there with them every single day helping out. So, what do you do? So I feel like the hole that I dug for myself is going all in this screenplay development system thing, when my passion is filmmaking. My passion is not screenwriting or teaching screenwriting or doing videos about screenwriting. I've gotten good at it because I've spent so much time at it. There's a quote from, I don't know, Aristotle or something that says, we are what we repeatedly do. If you repeatedly write every day, you become a writer. If you repeatedly teach writing every day, you become a writing teacher. And that's just not, that's the hole that I dug for myself, is that's what I've focused my time doing, because I thought it was a means to an end. I thought it was a way to develop writers that we could build a film studio out of it. I'm not convinced that that's the way that it's going to happen. I don't know. I'm going to make a couple more videos after this, so this one will probably get lost in the playlist, never to be viewed again, as most of the earlier ones in this series, which reveal the big picture and all of it. I ask you this. You say you want to write movies. You say you have ideas in your head that you want to see actually be movies. Are you taking ongoing, consistent daily action toward that goal? Are you actually following through? Are you actually doing what needs to be done to develop the skills, to create the stories, to get the results that you say you want? If you are, I 100% absolutely commend you. I hope that you'll reach out to me. If you're not, think about how far away you have pushed them by not taking action from the start of the series. Think about how far away it is how far you've pushed it away by not taking action over the past couple of years, or, the past decade or more. The same thing is going to be true if you don't take action now. The same thing is going to be true if you don't take action for the next 6 months. The same thing is going to be true if you don't take action every day for the next 6 months or year or 3 years or 5 years. You're not going to get any closer to the goal, just as I'm not any closer to developing my screenwriting craft because I pour all my energy into this teaching stuff. So I'm not closer to making the films because I've poured all my energy into trying to teach writers. This is the hole that I dug. It's time to stop digging this hole, and it's time to start getting into what we really want to be doing and what we're really trying to achieve. For me, that means finishing up this webinar so that I can start marketing fast. I've never marketed fast, ever. I've always hoped it would grow organically through this, and it's clear to me now that's never going to happen. So we're going to finish the webinar. We're going to start marketing fast, and hopefully it'll pull in enough to keep the lights on without sending me broke, which it already has. So too bad on that account. But we're going to finish that, and then I'm going to focus on developing my craft and getting better at that. So if you're here watching me to see if I succeed or fail, sink or swim, those who are on the sink side of the equation, you're not going to win. I'm going to get there. It might take longer than I wanted it to. It's certainly going to take longer than I had hoped at the beginning of the series, but I'm going to get there. So I do hope that you'll stick around. I hope to make I'm going to make a whole bunch of more videos on the Daily Prompt, under the Daily Prompt moniker here, simply because it's I can record something, I can pop it in the timeline thing, I can update the date, and we're kind of done. So it doesn't take that much time to do it. I just wanted to make better quality stuff for you, and that involves more resources. So I'm working on it. I hope that you'll stick around. I hope that you're still interested. I hope that you're taking action every single day. And now that you've watched this, personalize it. What are you going to do? What hole have you dug for yourself? And how do you get out of it? And where do you want to be? Focus on that. Take some action on that. We'll see you soon.